I've come across a lot of teachers who are arguing about English language because they forget that English is dynamic like any other language. What this means is that the grammar of English is a little bit behind the spoken English. Okay? So, grammar traditionally describes the rules of written language. Written language. The language that we speak changes faster than our grammar books. Keep that in mind. The language is always changing. When I came to England for the first time, I was surprised. I think the only culture shock that I had was not about the society being sophisticated. That was not unfamiliar. I came from a society that had similar things, maybe not the same. But the only culture shock that I had was that the English people were speaking English in more simpler ways than I was. Their language was so dynamic, it had grown in leaps and bounds. And I was still speaking English in more formal ways than they speak as the owners of the language. So that's to tell you that language, even your mother tongue, keeps growing. It's dynamic. There are so many things happening in our languages. For example, in non English speaking countries, the younger generation do what we call code switching. Code switching. They speak English and they mix it maybe with Yoruba or with another language. Or they are speaking their mother tongue and they're mixing it with another language. It's called code switching. And the language is changing and transforming. And sometimes new languages are born, like Pidgin, which is spoken across the world in different variations. So the spoken form is more different than the written form. Remember, I'm creating awareness for you about English language. Therefore, grammar rules are not exactly so fixed. They change over time. For example, a lot of us now use who instead of using the form whom. Who do you like best? Is it John or is it James? Now, the very formal form and the traditional form would be whom do you like best? But you would not be wrong if you ask who do you like best? And yet, in grammar, who serves as a subject, okay? But whom is usually an object. But don't worry, I'm not teaching grammar. I'm just trying to tell you that language is dynamic. And the different forms that we use change over time. So now most of us use who, and very rarely do we use whom. Now, the interesting part that I like about English language is that, or language in general, is that we can teach English using a functional approach. So when I say I'm sorry, what is the function of I'm sorry? The function is apologizing. I could say, may I stay? May I? I am asking permission. I could say, good night, mom. What's the function? I'm saying a last greeting at bedtime. Now, I'm going to ask you a question and I'd like you guys to answer me in the chat. What are the functions for can I have a cup of tea? Or why don't you talk about it? So just put A as can I have a cup of tea? So A, write the function. B, why don't you talk about it? What is the function of that expression? B, please chat and tell me what the functions of these two expressions are. Can I have a cup of tea? Why don't you talk about it? All right, I'm waiting for your answers. Can we start with A? Can I have a cup of tea? Somebody says a request. Well done. Thank you very much. That's great. Well done. I've got the same answer again. How about the function of why don't you talk about it? What function is it? You see, we can use a functional approach to teaching English. Permission? No, I won't accept it. Permission would be, may I? Could I? Persuasion? You're getting closer. It's not yet persuasion. There's something else. Why don't you talk about it? Or should I use another expression? why don't you talk to him about it? Or why don't we go to school together? Why don't you wait for him? Yes, let's see if somebody can get that function. Advise. Well done. Well done. Fantastic. So you see, we can teach English using the functional approach. And this is my favorite approach because we can take the function, which is the reason why the expression is made, and we can still teach children maybe the past tense or maybe verbs or any of the 9 parts of speech. For me, the functional approach is more important because I'm more interested in getting learners to know how to speak English, to be creative, to use different forms. So why don't you talk about it? If I were you, I would talk about it. The same thing, advice, the same function. If I were you, I would talk about it. Why don't you talk about it? Okay, so let's go on. We're creating awareness about how dynamic language is and how we can teach language. And in the midst of it, we're going to learn different teaching techniques. So we're learning at this point that you can use different approaches to teaching English or in, by extension, any subject. Okay, so now let's look at this. In the context of teaching knowledge test, we have the context, which I have spoken about. In teaching, you must always create a context. Why? Because it is by the context that whatever you're teaching becomes familiar. Whether you're teaching mathematics, or you're teaching science, or you're teaching English, we encourage you to create a context or create a situation. Get the child into familiar ground. Okay? Now, so we have the context giving the situation. So, for example, a child is going to bed at night. That's the situation, that's the context. And the child says, "Good night, mom." We use the word exponent to talk about, describe what was said. So, in TKT, context is the situation around what happened, the background. The exponent is what was said. And the function is why, or the reason, or the purpose for which it was said. So we can quickly teach English language by creating a context, giving the exponent, which is the speech, and then giving the reason. So, for example, a couple are maybe at a restaurant having a date, and one of them says, "Can we have some food, please?" So it's a request. A request is being made for food. A boy came late to school. What do you think he said? "I'm sorry I'm late." And it functions as an apology. Or a daughter receives a gift from her dad and she says, "Thank you, Dad." It's a statement of appreciation. So now I'm going to ask you to give me the context. Somebody should give me the context for the word pardon. The context, just create a context, just write anything. We're learning about how we can create context in teaching English language and by extension other languages. Thank you very much. Somebody says, "No, I didn't ask for the function, I asked for a context." Pardon? Pardon? What is the, create a scenario. In what context would I say pardon? In what context could I say that? That's the question. "I beg your pardon?" Pardon? Come on, someone, create a context for me. I'm waiting. Now, remember, the other contexts are here. A child is going to bed at night, or I was going to bed at night when I saw my dad. That's a context. I was in a party when they gave me a gift. That's a context. It's a scenario that has been created to create familiarity. So if I say pardon, or if I say I beg your pardon, what is a context? Can you create a scenario where I would need to say pardon? Giving you another chance. Thank you very much. Somebody seems to have offered. Are you hungry? Pardon? No, 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 nope. Can you try again? Okay, so The context could be anything. Ah, someone's giving me another one. Two professors are discussing a difficult topic, and one says, Pardon? Hmm. Might work as a context. One is asking for clarity or is asking, Can you repeat what you just said? Okay? So, thank you very much. So, two professors are having a discussion of a difficult topic, and one could query something one says by saying, Pardon? Pardon me? Or he might be asking, Can you repeat what you just said? Or can you be more clear? Pardon? Okay. So the function could be, like somebody has said, asking for clarity. Okay. Or asking someone to repeat themselves. Okay. Otherwise, we can actually use it to challenge someone. I beg your pardon. So it depends on the scenario. So you can see that from one expression, the way it is spoken can mean different things. It can be, Can you please repeat yourself? Pardon me? Pardon? Or it could mean, Can you give more clarity? Pardon? The same way. Or I could be challenging, I beg your pardon? What did you just say? Okay, so that's how language functions. So we can teach language, English, using a functional approach.